So I often catch a fair bit of flack regarding my lack of gear-related videos. I mean, I create one every now and then, and I'm trying to make them on a more consistent basis, but the honest truth is I just don't get super jazzed up about photography equipment, and if it's not something I really get excited and pumped up about, I really struggle with making a video on it. But every once in a while, something new comes along that really piques my interest, and as a Denney ambassador, I often get the opportunity to share with their team what I think works and what doesn't work for me. And from my experience, one of the biggest issues with Denney filters has not been the quality of the filters themselves, rather the time that it takes to install them when you're in the moment, on location, while conditions are rapidly changing. And I'll often forego using any filters at all just because I don't feel like fiddling with them, which is why many filter companies have developed and adopted a more of a magnetic filter system, which honestly, I think is absolutely fantastic and something I was hoping Denney would do for quite a while now. And although they didn't go the magnetic route with their new Swift filter system, the approach they did take could certainly solve one of the biggest issues with using filters. And this is not a sponsored video. Denney did send me this to try out and get my opinion on. So a real quick clarifying point, something that Mark completely forgets to bring up at this moment, is the fact that the Swift system was originally developed and released a few months ago, but it was built specifically for videographers. It was a variable neutral density filter set. And based off of the insane demand and popularity of that product, Denney decided to use the Swift technology and create a filter set just for photographers. So I was afraid that that could be a point of confusion, and I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. And I wanted to share my experience with you. They are certainly not perfect filters. There are two things I wish were a little bit different, but overall, I've really enjoyed using them so far. So it's first, I think, really important to understand the problem that a lot of filters companies are trying to solve. And if you own one of these types of filter systems, you definitely can relate to this next portion of the video here. But if you use these types of filters, graduated neutral density filters, that are very long and rectangular, you would be required to use one of these types of adapter systems. And these adapters have definitely gotten much better over the years. But in order to use this type of a setup, you are first required to screw some type of an adapter ring on the end of your filter. And oftentimes this adapter ring would hold the polarizer, which I have on now. So you just screw the adapter ring on, and then you would attach this filter holder to the adapter ring. And from then, now you can start to slide in your filters. You could slide in a graduated neutral density filter. You could slide in a solid neutral density filter. They're never easy to really slide into these little slots. You know, the slots are always narrow. They kind of rubberize. You kind of like fiddle with them a little bit. So as you can see, that was a multi-step process just to get to the point where you can start to slide these in. And one of the big benefits of using these types of filter systems, and like I said, this is not something that was just a Denney issue. This was something that every filter company really had that used this type of a setup. But the big benefit was the fact that you could stack these filters. So you could use a graduated neutral density in front of a polarizer. You could put a solid ND filter in front of that. And that was the big benefit. But I often found myself on location just not wanting to fiddle with, especially if it was wintertime. Anyone who's been in this situation can definitely relate to this pain. Your hands are cold, conditions are changing rapidly, and you want to use some type of a filter, and trying to fiddle with all of this, it's just not a good scenario. So what Denney has developed is something called the Swift filter system, which I think is really, really cool. Like I mentioned, it's not a magnetic system, but I think the route that they did go with is pretty neat. And this is the, I guess, little holder that it comes with. And what's neat about it is I actually have the setup on the end of my camera right now. It comes with this little lens cap right here. You pop it off, and it does have an adapter ring. So you will need an adapter ring. I just got the 82 millimeter adapter ring. 82 millimeter is the largest thread size that I have. And then I can use step-up rings for that from there. But once you have this on here, you really don't have to take it off. It's totally up to you. You can just put this little cap right on it and then put this in your camera bag and you're always good to go. But whenever you do want to use a filter, you can pop that off. Let me make some more room here. I've got a lot of stuff on my desk, which is unusual for me. I normally like to keep somewhat of a tidy desk. So once you have the adapter ring on there, you can just take out one of these filters here. This is the, what is this? Ooh, the 10 stop. And all you do is just put it right on the end and you just push it on. It took me a little while to figure out exactly how it was working because it's not magnetic. But there's like these little, like a little rubber, almost like a grommet inside of here. And you just push it on there and it just locks it into place right there. And I've never had one fall off. And what's cool is, let's say that you're in a scenario and 10 stops is not enough light. You know, by the way, I forgot to mention, I got some good before and after photos from my trip to Spain using these filters, which are pretty interesting. But if 10 stops isn't enough, you can throw on an additional 6 stop and put that right to the lot, just like that. If that is not enough, you can come over here, you can put an additional 3 stops on, and you can see where I'm kind of going with this. You can continue to stack these over and over and over again, as many as you want. And as you can see, they're super, super easy to put on. If you want to take them all off, you can take them all off. They're stuck like that. If you want to take just the one on the end off, you can do that. It's very easy to use. And what I think is so awesome about that is not the fact that the filters are fantastic. It's the fact that when things are easy to use, you use them. And when things are not easy to use, you don't use them. And I never used solid NDs for like years, really. And I definitely never used graduated neutral density filters just because they were kind of a pain to use. But the fact that this is a very simple process to implement, I find myself using them much, much more often. And honestly, I really, really am happy with the overall system, the overall ease of use. As far as vignetting goes, that's definitely an issue with wider angle lenses. This is a medium format camera. And I think these photos I'm about to show you, I'll show you the EXIF data in a minute. We'll see exactly how wide I was. I did see a little bit of vignetting. I had to zoom in just a touch, but I was able to shoot very, very wide without any vignetting at all. But it was there in a small capacity. So I did have to overcome that. But I want to show you a couple before and after images, because at the end of the day, you know, the ease of use and like the build quality and all those things are important. But if the results are not there, you know, what use are they? So I'm gonna go ahead and show you these. So let me show you the final result. Let me find it real quick. Here it is. So this is a photograph from my recent trip to Spain. This is the fully edited version. And as you can tell, it's a shutter speed that is substantially longer than anything I normally do. I really, like I said, I haven't used any kind of ND filters very often at all over the past couple of years. This was a 30-second exposure, and I really, really liked the way it turned out. I'm still not a big fan of super long exposures with waterfalls because I do like to see a little bit of detail. But in this type of a scenario, where there was just small little waves and ripples, and it just created more of a distraction than anything. So being able to smooth out the water like this, I think really, really lends itself well. So here are the 2 different versions. As you can see, if I zoom in here, you can see what I'm talking about. Like all of this right here, there's no interest here. There's nothing exciting happening here. It's not adding to the story. It's just a lot of distractions, in my opinion. This right here looks like a much more simplistic photograph. And I really like the clouds here. The clouds were really kind of racing by. And that's honestly the #1 reason I wanted to try and do a longer exposure, because I wanted to get a little bit of that movement, because I personally like photographs that have a static object and then something also moving at the same time. So like all of these rocks in the foreground, a ton of amazing detail right through here. And obviously none of this is moving, and the water doesn't look like it's moving, but you can see that the clouds, these lower clouds right through here, are just kind of screaming by. And then you have these clouds up here that look like they're stationary. So I really like the dynamic play of things that are very static and things that are also moving. I think it's a great way to create an exciting photograph. But these are the 2 different images. Let's look at the EXIF data here. Let's see, 2:58 p.m. This is definitely on East Coast time. So this one was captured 4 minutes before this one. And let's look at the settings here. So f16 at 30 seconds. This is a f16 at just under half a second, both at about 20.6 millimeters, 20 millimeters. And what I did is I started to kind of zoom in until that vignetting was gone. So right around 20 millimeters is when I was able to remove it. And 20 millimeters on a full frame camera is roughly around 16-ish on a full frame camera. So that's pretty good to be able to shoot that wide with no vignetting. As far as the quality goes, I don't see any kind of quality loss between these 2 photographs. It's kind of hard to see that sometimes, but it looks crystal clear. The exposures are a little bit different. I tried to match them as best I could. And as far as kind of color shifting or color balancing, the one with the Denney filters looks like it has a very, very, very subtle magenta color cast to it, but it could be because this was sunset. The sun was just about to drop below the horizon, but the Denney filter image was captured 4 minutes later, and 4 minutes doesn't seem like a lot of time. When the sun is about to cross the horizon, it is a pretty big difference. So it could be because of that, But either way, the image quality on both without the filter and with the filter definitely looks great. So I'm definitely happy with the way that this image turned out. And like I said, if I ended up just using this type of a scenario here, you can tell that I was using f16. I was trying to stop as much light as I really could and to try and drag out that shutter speed a little bit. And about a half a second is really all I could get. But you can still see a ton of detail in the water here. But being able to use that filter easily and quickly, I was able to get this, and I really, really like this. Is probably my favorite photograph from that trip to Spain. I shouldn't say that, I only edited one so far, but I really do like the way that this one turned out. But it's because I was able to use a filter quickly. Conditions were changing fast. I would have never used any of the other systems or my other Denney system just because it was too much to fiddle around with and conditions were quickly changing. But being able to just throw a filter on into here in just a matter of seconds, I ended up using it. And that's what I think is the most important thing about all this is when things are easy to use, you use them. And when things are not easy to use, you don't use them. So in order to get the best bang for your buck for filters, you definitely want to have them to be able to be used as easy as possible. Now they do have a polarizer that is coming out as well. I haven't been able to get my hands on one yet, but I'm assuming it will be the one that goes on first, and it has like a little stem on the end. You can see where there's like a little cutout here. That way you can rotate the polarizer around. But when that does come out, this is definitely going to be my go-to setup. I love how small this is. I like the ease of use. Now, enough with all the praise. As far as the things that I wish were a little bit different, I just mentioned how small, I mean, look how small this is. This is the entire ND set right here. It's tiny, very tiny, lightweight. But for some reason, this case seems a little bit of an overkill. It's substantially larger than the actual filters themselves. And I probably wouldn't even use this filter case. I mean, I like it, it's good quality, but I would like to find something that it just holds this right here. It's super, super small. Because my other filter systems, you know, I would have this bag right here to hold some of it. I would use this one right here to hold the graduated neutral densities. That's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of filters, a lot of things that I generally wouldn't use on location, but I would end up bringing around anyway. So to be able to just grab this is something very, very nice. So if there's a suggestion that, or a wish list, I could say, or something I wish was different, I wish the case was a little bit better that would fit something in a scenario kind of like that. And then the last thing is, you know, I'm not sure exactly why Denney didn't go the magnetic route. And this is a real nitpicky thing because putting this on the end of the filter, if it was a magnet, you could just get it to like this zone right here and it would just attach and that would be it. It would be super simple. I had it backwards. But this you actually have to push on and then use a tiny, tiny bit of force and then it gets on there. It's just a very small thing, but I kind of think that magnets might have been a little bit easier to put on. But like I said, the amount of force that is required to put this on is barely even measurable, and that's it. And honestly, the more I thought about it, I don't know this for sure, but I think that the reason why they didn't do the magnets is maybe the magnets in there make the filters a little bit heavier. I'm not positive, but that's the only thing I can think of. And these are insanely light. I mean, they weigh practically nothing, really just the glass themselves. So I think that is a benefit. You know, lighter things are always better or not always, but usually better. Anywho, those are two small things that I wish were a little bit different, but overall, really happy with the new setup, and I wanted to share my experience with you all today. If you have any questions about them, I don't know when they're going to be released. I'll see if I can find out and put it in the description below, and I don't even know how much they're going to cost either, but if I can find that out as well, I'll also put that in the comment or in the description below as well. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you. And I don't know why I grabbed it. For some reason, I like to play with these a little bit. They're just, I don't know, I like the way they kind of stick together. But yeah, leave me a comment below, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. And if you enjoyed the video, if you could, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, thank you so much for carving out a little bit of time to hang out with me today, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.